I'm Adam.
I'm Dan.
And we were going to talk about Wind River.
Yeah.
Which finally, because like I mentioned this to you before we went to go see it. Like for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I have seen commercials, TV spots for this movie on a daily basis,
right?
And not just once a day on an obscure channel. At least 3 or 4 times a day. Watching just normal Fox and ABC, TNT. I kept seeing commercials for this, and every time I would see it, it'd say playing in select cities. Right now, the movie I think came out about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was in a limited release. And it was released. It is playing in a theater downtown in Chicago.
Right,
but I don't want to drive down.
Didn't want to see it that bad.
No, I didn't want to see it that badly. I was just sitting there just hoping, okay, at some point it's going to get a wider release and it's going to get released somewhere where we can feasibly go see it. Not someplace where we got to pay for parking and take a train to go go see the movie. So finally this week, they gave it a wider release. Finally it was playing at a theater near us, and we finally got to see it. And I guess we'll go from there.
Yeah.
I guess. Expectations going into the movie, other than just from the TV spots and some reviews I read, I had nothing but kind of high expectations for the movie because everything I read was all very positive. People say this is the thriller of the summer or some shit like that, which is kind of ironic because there wasn't really any thrillers in this summer, so it kind of went by default in that case.
Yeah, I didn't read or watch many reviews of it, really, so I didn't know whether people were liking it, but just from the previews, it looked like it would be, a tense kind of atmospheric, moody movie.
Yeah.
And it was, which, as I know we discussed before, is one of the first times that the trailers have not misled us this year.
No, it hasn't. I'll first jump in and just say Jeremy Renner, amazing performance.
Easily his best performance that I've seen. Granted, I haven't seen a ton of movies where he's a lead character or in it at all. He's fine as Hawkeye in the Avengers movies and whatnot, but doesn't have a lot to work with acting wise there.
No, not really. I mean, Jeremy Renner is a very talented actor. I've seen him in other movies, Hurt Locker, or some other ones that I can't remember the titles of, or just don't. I know I've seen him in other stuff before where he still gives a very good performance. And, in this movie, it's no different. He gives an extremely great performance. I don't know, I wouldn't say it's Oscar worthy or anything like that, but it's a very good performance nonetheless.
He definitely carries the movie easily.
He carries the movie. He's the one character you get to know more about than any of the other characters in the movie. Not that there's many of them. There isn't a lot of characters, but and I think that's the whole point of the movie.
No, yeah,
actually.
absolutely.
But he's there's that one scene. There's the scene I kind of mentioned earlier where he's talking to Elizabeth Olsen. And he's kind of opening up to her about what happened, essentially to his daughter in the past. And I don't want to spoil the movie for anyone who wants to go see it, but essentially his daughter was murdered, and that's why this particular case is very close to his heart, because the girl ended up dying, and whose murder they're investigating ended up being a close friend of his younger daughter's.
Yeah, so he knows her personally.
So and he ends up telling Elizabeth Olsen the story about what happened, and I liked the way he told it, because he starts telling it with being very composed at first, and then you could tell near the end of him telling it, he's cracking and realizing, why am I even telling her this? It's just the idea that he's opening up.
Yeah.
And then Elizabeth Olsen, to her credit, who also gives an amazing performance in this movie, after she's told this story, she excuses herself to the bathroom and she just starts breaking down.
Yeah, she completely loses it.
And I don't know if it's because of his story or it's because of what she tells him later, how she's over her head and this is all a little too much too fast for her sort of thing. But that scene in the movie is one of the better striking scenes in my memory since seeing it a couple of days ago. It's the one thing that kind of sticks out to me is that scene when they're talking, because it's an amazing scene.
My thing is, I try to walk the line of being aware of the flaws of society, but I don't want to hammer it into people and be one of those. But at the same time, it's unfortunately, you kind of have the white savior thing going on here, because again, they explained that Jeremy Renner married into this family, and they all know him, so it's not like he's just showing up out of nowhere. But it is still us, the audience, following these two white people
Yeah.
who are doing all the work. And, like, you know, and I mean, Elizabeth Olsen gets moments where, like, you know, she has to be taught the lesson that, like, you know, they're not stupid. It's not that they don't know what's going on. It's that, you know, they're being treated badly. But then you have Jeremy Renner, who, great performance, but is still given this role as, like, he's the one who's got it all together. He's the one who's going to solve everything. And it's like, you know, I get it, because, you know, it's well written, and again, I'm not saying his character doesn't deserve it, but it's just that when you kind of take it out of the movie, from the context of the audience, it's like, it is still like the white guy does, like, save the day, though.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and
and then when you even think about even, like, again, there's not many characters in this movie. A lot of the characters who are actually in the movie only show up for 1 or 2 scenes, and then that's it. You never see them again. And that's the case with most of the Native Americans in this movie, because other than Jeremy Renner's wife and his what was it? His father-in-law, the couple who are the mother and father of the girl who's dead. And besides them, which, you know, like, even they're a little screwed up. All the other Native American characters and besides the sheriff, all the other Native Americans characters that we are presented in this movie are all, like, drug addicts and criminals and stuff like that. And I'm like, this movie, for a movie that's, like, trying to teach you a message about, like, how we really, like, you know, stick it to the Native Americans. It's like, you're not really you're making them all seem like terrible people in a way. This movie's a very bleak movie.
Yeah, it is.
In a lot of ways.
Because that's the other thing, is, like, the acting in the movie is good, the writing is good, but the atmosphere of the movie is both amazing and soul crushing at the same time.
You said this when we saw the movie, where the score of the movie, like the music, is so heart-poundingly effective because it is so freaking eerie.
Yeah, like, especially scenes when, like, it's just Jeremy Renner out in the woods or out in the middle of nothing, like, by himself, and all you have is the music and, like, wind blowing. And like what I said to you was, this was the best horror movie I've seen in years, and it wasn't a horror movie.
Because, like, in those instances when he's alone and you hear that music playing, like, you're assuming, like I've seen horror movies, something should pop out, right?
Yeah. Like he's gonna look into those trees and something's gonna step out and come at him.
we made the joke saying the monster from It Comes at Night is probably gonna show up in this movie.
They switched the titles.
He got sidetracked.
Like, the movie is so good that, like, you're just on the edge of your seat. Like, you know, kind of the same things that we said about
It Comes at Night.
Where, like, you sit there the whole time, you're on the edge of your seat knowing something is coming. But whereas that movie, you know, it did have some tense moments and there was gunfire that made me jump occasionally. But whereas that movie didn't end in a satisfying way, this one does build to something that works. And
well, like I said, the atmosphere of the movie, the tension, all that stuff, it builds extremely well. And it's extremely well done, especially, like, the scene you kind of mentioned where Elizabeth Olsen gets pepper sprayed and then she goes into the house looking for the bad guys and shit like that. It's this very tense scene because you're seeing her walk around blind, but then you get to see from her perspective and, like, how everything's blurry and shit. And, like, those moments, it was, like, kind of on the edge of your seat, like you're waiting for something to happen, sort of thing. And then, you know, something does, and then you're fucking jolted by it. And again, it's not a horror movie, but the movie is tense as shit at times. And that's one of the best things about the movie. And they really knew how to build that tension and also, more importantly, give it a good payoff. There's not much wrong with this film at all.
No.
But there's 2 things that I'll point out that are negatives towards the film. And one is that there are scenes in this movie that I feel go on a little bit too long. Like, I'm not saying the movie itself drags at all, but there are scenes in this movie where it's like, it doesn't need to go that long. Like, I don't need that much. And, like, the best example of that is, like, the scene I mentioned earlier where Elizabeth Olsen goes to the coroner when he's telling her what's going on with the body and how he's going to rule it, sort of thing. Like, it's a scene, it's very good, it's very well acted, it's very interesting. But, like, it could have been, like, 3 minutes shorter. Because it goes on for a while. And it's, like, stuff that we already kind of get. And it's, like, stuff that doesn't need, like, further explanation. The other thing I'll mention that's kind of a negative movie is when you get to the climax of the movie. Now, again, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who wants to go see it, because I'm going to, at the end of this video, I'm going to give it a recommendation for people to go out and see this film.
Please go see it.
But the climax of the film, which is very well done, okay, it's a very tense climax, and the ending with Jeremy Renner and everything is very good and very, like, satisfying, unlike, something like It Comes at Night.
Yeah.
But it's them solving this mystery, right? And that's the whole movie. Is once he finds that girl, the whole movie is them solving this mystery, right? And then it's just kind of like the whole thing kind of like solves itself right at the end.
Yeah.
Right when you get to that climax, it's like we're kind of we're not. It's not like we're given like a lot, because I like a good old mystery. I do, and it's not like we're given that much information to work off of for us trying to figure out what's going on. We're kind of just following them as they're figuring it out.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the actual, like, what actually happened, it all comes together, like, right at the end. Like, no one had a clue. Like, there was one or two theories that they were pitching around in the movie and shit like that. And I'll have to admit, there was part of me that started thinking Jeremy Renner was actually part of it. There was actually part of me thinking, like, they're gonna, like, end up, like, doing a little twist that Jeremy Renner's actually, like, responsible for this in some way. But, like, I'm glad they didn't do that.
Right.
I'm glad there's no twist. It makes sense. And it's logical. It's probable. You know, it's definitely that. But it's just like it just comes out of nowhere all of a sudden really fast, and then we're actually shown what happened in a flashback.
Well,
and then that happens. The flashback happens right before essentially Jeremy Renner figures it out.
Yeah.
Jeremy Renner essentially figures out what happened. And Elizabeth Olsen doesn't know what happened, and we're shown a flashback of what happened to this girl. We're shown a flashback that's about a good 10-minute scene, like a whole 10 minutes of them showing what went on and what caused this girl's death, and then like we cut back to present time with Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner and all that shit, and all of a sudden it's like boom, there you go, they figured it out, and like. In a way, it's fine. Like I don't really have that much of a problem with it, but it's just that like when you have a movie like this, like when you get to that point, it should feel like a big payoff.
Yeah.
Like I should have saw it coming, or it should be like like yes, it makes sense, or like yeah, like something like that, and it wasn't that. Now, granted, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. It's not, but it's just not what I was expecting.
Well, and I kind of understand that. Now. I agree that was a little bit of an issue. The issue that I had was not that it wasn't satisfying, because I think it ties in with the whole point of the movie of like, these things kind of just happen because of the way they're treated. And
the only other negative I'll give the movie is I don't particularly care the way it ends, sort of thing. Now, it's not that I don't particularly care. Like again, like I just complained about how the climax happens. The climax is very good, and then. The little bit after the climax when we kind of get closure near the end, that's fine. But then there's like 2 scenes after that are essentially the end of the movie. And like one of them involves Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen, and then the other one involves Jeremy Renner and the father of the woman who was murdered. Yeah. And like I understand the scenes. Like it's essentially just like people wrapping up loose ends sort of thing. But it's like realistically, I think the movie would have been better if you would have cut those 2 scenes out and just would have left it at the end the way it ends before Jeremy Renner gets to Elizabeth Olsen. I think if you would have cut those scenes out, I think that would have been a better ending. Because everything else after that just kind of feels somewhat tacked on. And it's almost kind of like my complaint almost like with Atomic Blonde. Where we were talking about Atomic Blonde. Not because Atomic Blonde had a different issue where it was all of a sudden just fucking tying up loose ends, too many loose ends all at like a short amount of time.
Yeah, and like that one, it definitely felt like it was a focus group thing. Like they wanted to add this in so that people would like it more.
Yeah, but with this movie, it's like these 2 scenes at the end of the movie do feel kind of tacked on. Like they don't feel completely necessary to end the film.
No.
Again, I understand why they're there. It's not like it's not that they're bad scenes or anything.
No, not at all.
But it's just that to me, it's just like it just felt like like I think it's almost like the way I guess I'll say it like this: it's almost like as if like you're on a roller coaster, okay? And I'm not gonna go with a blowjob analogy here. No, it's like you're on a roller coaster. You get through the big hill. You get through the you know the big
loop,
and you get to the end and you pull back in and you kind of get that you know. And then it's like, yeah, it's ended. You just got this exhilarating rush, and now, there's the end, and then you get out of the seat, and then the last two scenes is essentially you then making your long walk out to get back into the park out of the ride. And it's essentially how it feels. It feels like I got a satisfying ending, but then I got to watch like 10 more minutes of stuff that, like, at that point, like I don't care. The movie is wrapped up. I don't care about this.
It does kind of feel like had they just ended it before the Elizabeth Olsen scene. Like, it might have been a little more satisfying, but also a little bit more ambiguous. So, I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. The acting was fantastic. The atmosphere and the cinematography were just some of the best I've seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those movies. It's not a big blockbuster. It's not low budget necessarily. I don't know what it cost, but it was a studio movie. But it's one of those kind of under the radar, like lower profile movies, but it was very satisfying. It was very entertaining. And even though it was kind of bleak and dismal, it was the good kind of bleak and dismal that makes you feel something.
Mm-hmm.
Not just why am I watching this? It's like, it has a satisfying ending without necessarily being uplifting. And it's like you feel like it was working towards something and it achieved it, and I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone who likes movies should see it. Basically, it's not even really that graphic. So unless you're like really hardcore, you just can't stand violence or swearing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of swearing, but unless you can't stand that stuff, there's really no reason you shouldn't at least check it out and see if it's up your alley. So
I just want to point out the whole "if you like movies, you'll like it" sort of thing, because it's such a blank statement.
I mean,
it's like, are you a fan of food? You might like pizza.
Well, I mean, normally it's like, if you like action movies, if you like superheroes, if you like comedies, this one I think has something for everyone, unless you just really can't stand gritty dramas.
Yeah. I'm going to essentially concur with you completely. I think if you are a fan of Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen, or if you're not a fan, if you just only know them from being a part of the Avengers and shit like that, then you should go look out and try to see this film, because this shows you the acting ability and the acting chops that they truly have that they don't get to display in something like a Marvel film. I think that the atmosphere is amazing. I think the acting is, obviously I just said it, the acting is really good in this film. I love the scope of the movie. I love the cinematography. I love the setup. I love the mystery. I too am going to give it an 8 out of 10. And the thing is that when we first walked out of the movie, I was actually thinking about giving it a 9. I was actually potentially going to give it a 9, but it was me thinking about those two things that I mentioned that I disliked about the movie. When I think of those two things, that's what keeps it from giving it a 9. Is because it's like, those are like it's an extremely good film. It was almost a great film, but unfortunately, like those two things I mentioned kind of weigh down it just a little bit, to the point where it's like I can't give it a 9, but I could give it an 8. I definitely highly recommend. So that's gonna do it for us. So to recap, 8. Definitely recommend it. Go check it out and tell us what you thought about it, I guess. So I'll just go into saying, please thumbs up the video if you like it. Please subscribe to the channel. And again, I just said, leave a comment and let us know what you thought about it if you went to go see it. Other than that, again, we'll be back with something. If not something, soon, we'll be back with it in a few weeks. So thanks for watching. See you later.